Over the holiday period, I've had probably the 2 weeks that I've been doing Lester's program, I've probably had somewhere close to 20 people who have contacted me about this issue. The latest was Rob, and Rob sent me this message yesterday, which sums up the sentiments of the other 19 or so. This season, there has been a massive number of ride-on scooters on the Sea Point Promenade. These scooters zoom down the promenade at high speeds and are often driven by young, sometimes as young as 10 people, as young as 10 years old, with no helmets. It's only a matter of time before they injure themselves or pedestrians. Google's AI search, which is not always accurate, tells me that it's pedestrians only. They're allowed to wheel prams and so on, strollers, and they're allowed to have dogs between Mooley Point Lighthouse and the Sea Point swimming pool. But that's Google AI. Nicola Jowell is the Ward 54 councillor and joins us now. Morning, Nicola.
Morning, John.
What is the current set of rules?
So, as you say, Google AI is not always correct, and it's not in this case. The promenade is available for use for walking pedestrians as well as bicycles and electric devices as well. There was a removal of the pedestrian-only restriction in 2013, which was done as a pilot, and unfortunately it was never reviewed at that time. It just carried on in perpetuity. And more and more, as we've seen more electric devices come into play, it's become more of an issue on the promenade. In 2020, the city ran a public participation process asking the question, do we ban anything but with wheels on the promenade? Do we restrict times when people may use things like electric devices? Or how do we solve this problem? At that time, I think it was the public participation that received the most number of comments. There were about 2,000 comments, with the vast majority, and I would hazard a guess to say it was between 80 and 90%, saying we must allow all things with wheels on the Sea Point Promenade. So the community spoke at that point and said that they don't want us to prevent electric vehicles on the promenade. I am aware that towards the end of last year, I think probably November, that a new rental company came on the scene operating off Main Road Sea Point. So I do think it is correct to say that there are now a lot more rental devices being used on the promenade, and a lot more privately owned electric devices are also being used. So the conflict is increasing. We do have rangers that are employed by the Parks Department to patrol up and down the promenade, and one of the things that they are tasked with is asking the electric device users or even bicycles to slow down. We have a problem with speed of both of those users. It's not just one or the other. And so the rangers are tasked with asking people to slow down, be aware of pedestrians, and they are doing that actively. But it is a concern, and I think it might be something that has to be relooked at. I'm not sure what the answer is. I think as sort of lay persons, the ideal scenario would be to create a separate lane on the promenade for anything with a wheel, whether it's bicycles or electric devices, obviously excluding prams and things. It's not as simple as just taking the existing pathway and putting a line down it and saying one side is walkers and one side is other users. That is unfortunately not it would appear to be the easiest solution, but not really practical. The city did do a big study in 2019 looking at the possibility of creating a single-use lane for bicycles and electric devices. The cost of that actually became quite astronomical because there are certain sections of the promenade where it is not wide enough to accommodate two different users in that way on separate spaces. And so once you create a lane and you say this is the side for walkers and this is the side for other devices, you have to ensure that there is going to be a level of safety so the walkers can walk peacefully and the riders can ride without interference. And just creating a double lane on the existing pathway would not enable that level of surety of safety and comfort.
Because I haven't walked on the promenade for a while. I'm certainly never going to go there at this time of the year because of the difficulty of getting there and finding parking and so on. But when I have walked there, I've sort of had the sense that the vast majority of people who are not walking are using whatever else they're using, rollerblades or those stand-up things, those electric devices, as you call them, responsibly. And there are always people who don't act with a kind of civic consciousness. I do walk fairly often next to the Liesbeek River, where the winding tarred path is divided into two, and on one side it's supposed to be walkers, and on the other side it's supposed to be people riding bikes and so on. And that's completely ignored by both pedestrians and by people on wheels. So but I'm interested to know that you think 80 to 90% of a higher than usual number of responders to a civic issue said, leave it alone, let people go in on what they like on the promenade. Martin's just said, Martin's just WhatsApp to say, motorised bikes are a dangerous menace, often driven at speed, serious accident just waiting to happen, insane to allow it.
So I don't disagree with Martin. And there have been a couple of very bad accidents along the promenade. But as you said as well, it's the vast majority who are considerate and know that this is not a place for speeding and going at fast speeds. But there are a couple of outliers, and that unfortunately tarnishes it for everybody. And we don't want to get to a situation where there are more severe accidents. I do know that one of the rental companies who's been around for quite a while, they have a speed restrictor on their e-devices. So it can't go above a certain speed. And I certainly will be visiting the new operator to find out whether they are also doing that and implore them to do that as well. But I still think that it doesn't account for user behavior, even if you've got a speed restriction. The other issue is that under no circumstances are electric devices allowed on our pavements, along with normal bicycles. And I think that is something that is widely disregarded and is a problem. And our law enforcement and traffic services pay attention to this, but they've got a lot of things to pay attention to as well. So there's always a conflict of needs and limited resources to tackle the issue. But it is a problem, and that we're going to see more and more electric devices coming on the market and becoming in use. There's also an issue is that the national government fails to want to regulate or put in place measures to regulate e-devices. They are a great form of transport used responsibly and in a proper manner, but there is no legislation that allows them on the roads. They're not allowed on the pavements. And so where do people use electric devices has become an issue. So it does require, I think, national government to start to put in place guidelines of what and how they may be used in a safe manner, considering all other road users as well.
Nicola Jowell, Ward 54 councillor, thank you very much.